Joining me now, Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member from Culpeper, running for Congress, trying to be the Republican nominee to go up against Abigail Spanberger in the fall in District Number 7. Now, they had a convention originally scheduled for April 25th. That's not going to happen. So let's see what the new details are and how it's going. And joining us now is Nick Freitas. Hey, Nick, great to have you.
Hey, great to be on, John. Glad you're doing well.
Yourself and your family, everything okay?
Yes, they are. We're doing very well, staying busy.
All right. So let's get to your convention, which was originally scheduled for April 25th. This was supposed to be the nominating convention for the Republican candidate to be named to take on Abigail Spanberger in November. What's the status, actually, Nick, of the convention?
Well, obviously, with the governor's stay-at-home order going all the way to June 10th, and that was a convenient date because I think every candidate's got to be certified by June 9th. So at this point, unless there was some sort of drastic change before then, a convention would not be possible. So what they're looking at right now is either postponing it or looking at other alternatives. So they've talked about everything from, possible mail-in ballots to, different methods of nomination. And the 7th District Committee, the 7th District Republican Committee, will be the ones responsible for deciding what that alternative looks like in accordance with the Republican Party plan and state law. But they haven't settled on an alternative as of yet.
Who makes up the committee?
Oh, gosh, there's, I believe it's 18 members of the committee. And so what it is each Republican committee in each county, the chairman of the committee has one vote for them, and then you have a representative from the Republican women, the young Republicans, the college Republicans. I think it's 3 state central committee members, the chairman of the 7th District Committee. So all in total, it's about, I think, 17 or 18 people.
And those 17 and 18 people will decide what, Nick?
They'll decide what the method of nomination looks like at this point. So originally it was decided on a convention long before any of this was going on. Obviously, with, again, the stay-at-home order, something's going to need to change with that. So they're either going to need to postpone the convention, which, you run into problems that if the stay-at-home order extends, then, you run into the same problem. You have to extend again, or you come up with some sort of alternative. And again, something like mail-in ballots and things like that. These are all different options that have been discussed.
Is there any option that you particularly favor?
Not really, and the reason for that is because I'm adamant about candidates not selecting their method of nomination. I'm asking to get the Republican Party's nomination. I think that they should decide what exactly that looks like. I just want a fair, open, and transparent process. That's all I'm looking for.
Are you confident that you can be successful in any of those scenarios?
Yes.
So what we're looking at is they might postpone the convention itself. They might do a mail-in. Would it be a mail-in, like, virtual convention, or a mail-in ballot for a primary or a firehouse primary, or any of the above?
Yeah, they thought about a couple different things. Again, the stay-at-home order kind of limits the options, but there's a mail-in option. They've talked about doing some sort of digital option. They've talked about doing a drive-through option. I mean, there's obviously we're dealing with something that is not really written into the party plan or state law or whatnot on this. And so trying to come up with something that complies with the law, recognizes the health concerns, and at the same time allows people to vote and actually have a say in who their nominee is, all of those things are being considered as they determine what sort of alternative.
Why not just have a primary in July?
Well, there's a couple issues with that. One right now is, again, because state law says that a candidate's got to be certified in June, unless there's something, unless that date passes. Like, so there's certain provisions within state law and the party plan to where if a candidate were to drop out after the June deadline, you could go and have another candidate. But other than that, you're supposed to have all your candidates certified by June. If you try to do a primary in July and let's say things are still going poorly, well, then now you just have to extend that date again. And at some point you run into the issue of, we need to get into the general election.
You don't have a candidate, right?
Exactly. And the longer you push that date off, the more difficult that potentially is.
What a
And
mess.
so it really is. And again, a lot of it just goes down to, I don't think, I don't think anybody right now is trying to have some of the fights that sometimes go on over nominating contests. We're just trying to find what's the fairest way to do it, the most transparent way to do it, and the one that allows the people of the 7th District to have a say and know who their candidate's going to be in June, amidst everything else they're having to deal with right now.
Now, have all for the original April 25th convention, all of the deadlines for filing as a delegate, the pre-files, if you will, all of those have now passed, right?
That's correct.
If it were to be a convention-oriented selection process, and what I'm saying by that is that would only involve the delegates who filed, right? So it wouldn't be an open, you wouldn't change the process, whether it be virtual, digital, drive-by, drop a ballot in a box, whatever that might be, mail it in. But right now, all of the delegates, like whoever filed is filed, right, for that convention. So that's over. Can those dates be extended?
So the pre-file dates at this point would not be extended. They would at least, from my understanding, 7th District Committee, if they wanted to switch to a different method of nomination, one of the things that they would have to determine at that point is, are only the people that pre-filed going to be allowed to participate, or are you going to open it up to other people? That would be something for them to be able to decide. But in the spirit of the convention would have been, okay, everybody that pre-filed would be able to participate. So if they came up with an alternative that would mail in, or if they came out with an alternative where it was drive-through or some sort of, party canvas version where, you went to a local spot to drop off your ballot as opposed to a central location within the 7th District. They could put a limitation on all of that where it was only the people that pre-filed if they wanted to do that.
It would seem to me that would be the fairest process, right? Because everybody worked hard to get their pre-files in. I mean, that was the way the 7th District decided to nominate the convention. As you know, Nick Freitas, I hate conventions. I'm backing Senator Joe Morrissey's bill to outlaw them in the state of Virginia for federal and state offices, because I think it's all kinds of shenanigans. I hate them, and I think it's destroyed the Republican Party and continues to do that. But that's a narrative for a separate day. You guys have worked, all the candidates have filed their delegates, worked to get them in. So to now change that process, that would make all the work that's been done moot, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it would. It definitely would. So no, I do think that there is. I do think there's good reason to keep it to those people that have pre-filed if that's what they decide to do. Again, I don't think my job as the candidate is to tell the district or the party or the people what it is that they should do. But that would certainly be the most closest to what the original intent was, is that they just had the people that have pre-filed actually participate in the nominating contest.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. We're with Nick Freitas. Nick is a House of Delegates member, Republican from Culpeper. He's also one of the candidates vying for the Republican nomination for Congress for District 7, which is currently occupied by Democrat Abigail Spanberger. By the way, one of the toughest Democratic candidates to beat in the country come 2020 in a district that Trump carried in 2016, in my judgment. So, Nick, let's get back to those that have filed the pre-filings. How does the Nick Freitas campaign feel about your status right now as far as the number of delegates that you filed?
Oh, very good. Very good.
Why?
If you look at the overall percentage of delegates, here's the important thing to understand about pre-file, because there's been some candidates that have gone around and talked about, oh, we won this county or we won that county. When somebody pre-files, that doesn't mean they're committed to a particular campaign. All it means is that they want to participate in the convention. Now, one of the things that campaigns do is obviously we get our supporters together, we make sure everyone's filled out the paperwork, and then the campaign they can't fill out the paperwork for the potential delegate, but we can drop it off for them. And so one of the campaigns do to track how many people that are pre-filing that have at least expressed some interest in voting for them is they turn all those in and they keep track of that number. They keep track of the total number of people that have turned in their paperwork, that have pledged or said they want to vote for you. But again, there's nothing that legally requires them to. But if you want to use that as a marker, well, then we're very confident that we've done incredibly well throughout the 7th District. And again, as far as a specific number, we were tracking to do very, very well on the first ballot at convention. I'll put it that way.
So a lot of people say that if you don't win on the first ballot, you lose. True or false?
It's I wouldn't say it's true, but it's one of those things where a lot of times candidates will work with each other if they don't think they're going to be number one on the ballot, and they might come up with certain sort of agreements or whatnot to say that, okay, if I fall off, then I'm going to endorse you. But again, that doesn't commit any of the people that voted for them on the first ballot to vote for whoever their chosen candidate was, or whoever their candidate prefers out of the others. So no, I don't think so. I think it's common to see it go for anywhere from 2 to 3 ballots at a convention, and as long as you're within the top 1 or 2, or as long as you're in the top 2 or so, you've got a good chance of winning.
Right. So if the convention on April 25th went forward, how confident, Nick Freitas, would you be that you would have enough people there to win on the first ballot, which means you would have to get 50% plus 1?
Yeah, very.
All right, so you're confident of that. Now, of course, if it's a mail-in or if it's a drive-by and you don't get 50% plus 1 in the first ballot, let's say you get 47%, well, then what happens, right? Then they have to come up with a second round of mail-ins. This thing could go on for weeks. That's the flaw in the whole thing.
There's a couple different options. So they could do basically what they could do is if you did a mail-in, they could do the mail-in ballot, and then whoever the top 2 or the top 3 candidates were, they could reduce it down to that, and you could just do a runoff between the top 2. There's also something called a ranked choice ballot where you would actually just number your 1 through 6 on your top candidates.
That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous because that's like, okay, I'm voting for Nick Freitas. Who's my second choice? I don't have one. I'm voting for Nick Freitas. I don't like any of the others. I mean, it gets, and then it's like, well, okay, whatever. I don't know anything about this one or that one. I'll vote for them. I mean, it's a lot different than when you're sitting there and one of your candidates is eliminated, and now your choice is you either vote for one of the others or you go home. I mean, that's the way it works. That's why I hate these things. To begin with, you should just have a primary. All right, let's talk about money. How much money did you raise in the opening quarter?
First quarter, yeah. So we raised $400,000 in the first quarter, which we were very happy with, especially all things considered. I mean, I know, gosh, the last month or so, we've just been focused on doing things associated with the virus, whether it's, trying to work with first responders or local businesses or whatnot. So we were really happy with the number that we ended up hitting for the first quarter. And to my knowledge, none of the other campaigns have publicly published their numbers at this point because you don't have to. It doesn't become public until I think it's April 15th or 16th. Right. But we were happy to get our numbers out there because, again, we led pretty significantly in the fourth quarter of last year, and we think we're doing really well in the first quarter as well. And again, this puts us in a good position to be able to start campaigning for the general right now, which is essentially it's why we need to get this nominating contest over. We want to do it in a way that's safe. We want to do it in a way that's fair, open, and transparent. But we also need to get it done because we need to start worrying about the general election.
When does 18 members of each of the committee, of the 7th District Committee, when do they meet again to start making decisions?
I believe it's going to be later this week, where they're going to try to come up with some different options. But I don't know the specific date at this point.
So you doubt that any decision will be made this week, but they'll just have a meeting to talk about what they might do in a subsequent meeting.
No, I don't know that they won't have a decision. Again, I think this is something where, unlike the media, unlike the White House press corps, every other American has actually been pretty. Yeah, exactly. Everyone else has been pretty good about being understanding that we're in uncharted waters here for a lot of this stuff. And so I think that the 7th District Committee has been very, very open about what they're trying to do and trying to make it as fair as possible and including everybody. I don't know when they're going to have a final decision.
Well, it's kind of frustrating, right? Because you got all your filings in, you raised $400,000. And the other thing is, I think you were the only, both you and John McGuire were tied up, almost every day and almost every night doing General Assembly business. So it's not like you could go out and do a fundraiser every single day. You had a lot of stuff to do in Richmond. So we'll see how the numbers come in. But it sounds like from talking to Nick Freitas that you're pretty confident that under a number of scenarios, you would still be the favorite to be the nominee. That's what I think I've heard.
No, I don't see any scenario right now where we don't win the nomination. And I'm not just trying to be overly confident.
I get it.
We've been running the entire time as you always run as if you're 10 points behind. And that's how we've conducted ourselves. But when you look at the things that you can track, when you look at the fundraising, when you look at the in various endorsements and how that's helped with networking and fundraising operations, when you look at things like the number of delegates you've been able to reach out to, the presence at people's events, the presence at people's virtual town halls that we're doing now, all of those things suggest to us that we're doing very, very well.
The governor's shutting the state down till June 10th. So far, social distancing has worked in Virginia. We have a relatively lower percentage of people in the hospital, relatively lower percentage of people that have passed away from the virus, and President now trying to find a way to reopen the economy. Nick, one of everybody's concerns here is that if this economy stays shut down through, May, we may never recover. And the social cost, the economic cost of lost jobs, income, families being destroyed, businesses shut down. I mean, I've talked to probably 50 business owners this past week, and it's only Tuesday, who told me that they can't make it beyond April. If it's May, it's over. They're done. These are millions and millions of jobs, homes shattered. This is a disaster. If you were in Congress right now, what would your position be on when we get the economy opened?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to understand is that, and this is something I think President Trump understands, this is not just a federal silver bullet where Congress just decides, okay, the economy is open now. There's a reason why we have a federalist system of government, and so that individual states and localities can actually, combat what's going on with assistance from the federal government. But ultimately, those decisions cannot all be made from Washington, D.C. I think one of the things that President Trump has demonstrated is that he's done a great job with respect to allocating federal resources down to states when they need it. And then you got people like, Governor Cuomo sitting there yelling at the president when he's got tens of thousands of ventilators in storage and masks in storage. So I think that rather than everyone looking to Washington, D.C. and asking themselves, okay, when is D.C. going to figure all this out? No, D.C. has a coordinating function to play. And they can certainly assist with allocating on resources and things like that, just like the White House has done. But ultimately, localities and states also have to bear both some of the responsibility and make some of these decisions because they should have a far better understanding of what is going on at a local and state level than the federal government does. And so I think, again, the federal government has a coordinating function to play when it comes allocating resources between state, local, and federal. But ultimately, I think if states understand where their health situation is at, and also understand this. And gosh, I've been saying this for weeks now. Obviously, all of us want to deal with this issue, and all of us want to take it seriously. Give us data and let people make the best decisions for themselves, their families, and their communities. But ultimately, you cannot have a cure worse than the disease itself. And I think that one of the things that you've been seeing is a lot of businesses have been adapting their operations as much as they can, some of it to going from whatever they were currently manufacturing over to things like masks and ventilators in order to help with that. We've got distilleries here in my district and in Virginia converting to hand sanitizer. We've got more companies figuring out how to continue to stay in business with curbside or whether it's having more of an online presence. And I think all of that's good. But again, the government cannot sit here and cripple everything indefinitely because of coronavirus and not understand that there's going to be other consequences as a result. And I think you said it earlier. You have to look at this from both perspectives. One perspective is how do we deal with the health crisis? The other perspective is how is it affecting the lives of people in a practical basis. We want to be able to move on from here.
We're only looking at one side of the model, Nick, and that's the virus model, the death model, the testing model. We're not looking at the economic model and the cost of that. And if you want to talk about lives and people dying, this thing goes on. This shutdown goes on through the end of May. The number of people dead in the United States because of the economic calamity that it's causing will make the virus look like child's play. Now, it's not 100,000 or 200,000. It's in the hundreds of thousands of deaths, suicides, people's lives being destroyed, alcoholism, drug addiction. This is all a reality that nobody will deal with. All right. Number one, if you were in Congress, the $2.2 trillion package, would you have hit the green button or the red button?
Oh, I would have. So I think we needed to get something to the American people. I would have had a real problem with what they did. I mean, you saw it with Nancy Pelosi and everything that she was trying to do. And this also, John, this is why we need to go to one issue per bill when we talk up at D.C. And people act like that's impossible. You could never get Washington, D.C. to go to one issue per bill. We do it in Virginia all the time. And there's no reason why we couldn't do it up there. But you saw what happened when you allow Congress to just basically, wait out the clock and use a crisis in order to try to push an agenda that has nothing to do with actually dealing with the hard issues that American people are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I think that overall, I understand we needed to do something for the American people. We needed to be able to do something in order to help people navigate this crisis, which, again, when the government's shutting you down, it's reasonable to expect some sort of relief from the same entity that is shutting you down. But I tell you what, I could not be more frustrated with what the Democrats were trying to do with this bill, and quite frankly, what some Republicans were as well. And so I think it's time that we need to move toward one issue per bill, so that when we look at something like a stimulus package in a time of crisis, we can actually have an up or down vote on those issues or those spending measures, which are just going directly to the crisis and not even allowing for the opportunity to someone to, put $25 million to the Kennedy Center. Mm-hmm. We had tens of millions, billions of dollars going to things that had absolutely nothing to do with the coronavirus.
Right.
And so that has absolutely got to end. And if we can't actually come together and realize, and you can go ahead and poll this, John, you will find that you ask people, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. What do you think of one issue per bill? What do you think of germaneness rules? What do you think of Congress only, not being able to do it?
It's in like 75, 80%.
Easy.
This thing's pulled in the 80s.
The only people that like the way that Washington, D.C. does business, especially when it comes to something like this,
are the
lobbyists. Exactly. It's the people that can get their little goodies into a bill.
The swampers and those that believe that big government is the answer to everything. They run around Washington like rats feeding from the pig trough. Look, I get it. I want to thank you for your time with us today, Nick Freitas. Nick, people want more info on your campaign. Where do they go?
Go to nick4va.com. That's NICKFORVA.com. And definitely follow us on social media.